I'm Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
That was different.
I'm trying to change it up.
Okay, go a little slower, and that
Well,
works.
I don't have a ton of options, really.
This is interesting. So we are the CRM players, and the very first comment of the day does not go to our moment is Finn. It goes to somebody who says we love sarcasm. The hell is that? We haven't even said anything yet. Who loves sarcasm? Is that Bob Fagel?
It could be Bob Fagel, or it could be soon to be host Esteban Kolsky,
Yeah.
because we
Let us
know
know
he
who you
loves
are. Who loves
sarcasm.
sarcasm? But in the meantime, let's go to our moment of Sven. And Sven wrote a paragraph here.
Well, this one's
That's
pretty
Spanish.
obvious what language it
Yeah,
is, but
that's Spanish.
let's say, hello, friends. I have a confession to make. I'm guessing on some of this. Um, I, I speak with much respect, but nothing. Oh no, but something about a blueberry bagel. Um, I've had no. I think the summary of this is, even though he talks about blueberry bagels respectfully, he's never had one. I think he's never had one. And then he said, I think that last thing is, have you eaten it yourself, or have you chewed on one yourself?
All right.
Basically,
I'm gonna
something
have
like that.
oh,
But that's
this is supposed to be the moment of Sven when he greets us in some weird language and we try to guess, and usually I'm wrong and you're right. Now Sven is like trying to turn this into the hour Sven with this paragraph he's written. Neither of us are fluent in Spanish. We need the like a full blooded trans. Oh, all right, here we go. We got the full blooded
I got the gist of it right.
we talked a lot about it, but I've never eaten a blueberry bagel before. I have never had this experience before. So hope we will do that. We will. And it won't only be you and me, Sven.
Yeah. Oh, you think you can get Alan Tressler to do it on screen? I don't think
No,
so.
I think Sven will be joined by another person on this call.
Oh, that's what this is about. The person you're talking
No,
about.
this is Finn brought this up and put it
Yeah,
up.
but somehow it dovetails into whatever this thing is I'm going to see from you.
Well, we shall see. We shall see. But in the meantime, I did
Did you?
mention that we are the CRM players, but officially, we are the CRM players,
Bring,
and we've been
bring
bringing the as since 2000.
right, and no disrespect to Arizona.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to explain why we're both chuckling at this one?
Yeah, so well, actually, you could just sort of, if you have it, you can tee it up. You can just play the part.
I should have done that, but I didn't.
All right, it's all right. I'll explain it. So when we did that incredible variant intro, the guy from Sardis, the event company who actually did it, did that huge logo for us on the screen, said he introduced us as CRM Playaz, Brent Leary and Paul Greenberg, bringing the as, and he just said bringing the as,
And we had
which
never heard anybody say that before.
no, but at least we didn't misspell it with 3 letters.
uh, or even the additional Z could be weird,
Right,
add a
we
Z.
got it right. Now we just have to overcome the good citizens of Arizona when they complain.
Yeah, well, they're good citizens, so they shouldn't complain. Um, all right, yeah, but before we do have a guest, and yeah, Christy, your guest. Uh-oh.
Uh oh.
What happened
I
to
don't know.
Paul?
It just hold on. I just said my camera was unplugged.
Yeah, you kind of went unplugged there.
Yeah, I don't know why. I'm gonna have to probably see if. Wow, that is bizarre.
Well, while you're fixing that, people are asking what the as is. And quite honestly, that was our first question too when we first heard it on the stage at the Bellagio. Wow, Paul just completely disappeared. So I'll just keep on talking randomly until I see him come back. All right. So we had never heard of bringing the as. That was not our thing. It was actually one of the guys, one of the audio video guys at the Bellagio, this company Sardis, unprompted, but we're so glad he did this. he did a voiceover for when we walked on the stage. And so, as part of his voiceover, he says, "Here's the CRM players, Brent Leary and Paul Greenberg." And then there's a little space, and then he goes, "Bringing the ass." And as we were walking on the stage, we were like, "What the hell is this dude talking about? We're not bringing no that." Um, but of course, he was talking about just the AZ, because we did bring the AZ on Playaz, because usually it's players. So we did bring the AZ in that regard. But yeah, it is what it is. And right now, what it is me trying to tap dance until Paul comes back. Hopefully, he'll be back. I'm keeping an eye on him. I can see in the green room. But we are going to have a really cool show because about halfway through, we are bringing on Okay, that was fun. LinkedIn just sort of went down there. I think LinkedIn doesn't like when we bring the ads, because Paul went out, then I just went out. I'm back. Paul's not back. I can see in the green room. I see some of our guests are here. Yeah, yeah. I see you, Rebecca. I see you waving. I see Mark. Mark will be coming on shortly, hopefully, uh, when Paul gets back. I don't know where he went. Maybe he's going out to get some blueberry bagels. Maybe we talked him up and he decided, you know what, I've been holding out for far too long. It's time. I'm going to do this. Yeah, we went to black there for I don't know, or like I went to fade to black for a split second. Paul is still fading apparently, so hopefully he'll be back soon. Michael Thomas Kramer was forgot about that episode of Seinfeld. Yeah, that was a good one. Thank you, Sahil. You know what? This is I've been playing around with the new camera. Both Paul and I got this new camera. It's a Lumix S5 Mark X2 or 2X. I don't know. And we got new cameras and new lenses, and I'm using that camera lens combination right here. Thank you, Rebecca. And so just playing around with it. Thank you, Joshua. I'm winging it, dude. Oh, but I don't have to wing it anymore because I was gonna say my wingman is back, but no.
Fair enough. So apparently my Chrome browser did what it did again out of the blue this time. Usually it fails me before we start. Just dropped it. So I am on, I shudder to say, Firefox.
Well, all I can say is maybe Chrome doesn't like when we bring the ads. Maybe that's
apparently Chrome must have been created by someone from Arizona.
All right, so why don't we do this, because we have our guest and he just dropped out again. What the heck? That's so funny. He literally, as I was getting ready to turn to him for the introduction, he just dropped out. This is really pretty interesting. Yeah, now Godfather versus the Wingman. That's like a mano y mano, or I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to set this up. Wait a minute. Even my slide deck went? No, let me bring my slides back in. So in the meantime, we're going to get this worked out because we have so much to talk to. We have a new friend that we want to introduce to the show. Now that's the best statement of the day so far.
Yep. Chrome is the ass.
And yeah, all this wing talk, I am kind of getting hungry for some wings. So yeah. All right. So what I was going to say is, before we bring our guests out, I let me bring my slides back, because I want you to just let folks know about what we're deciding to do with all this additional gear that we have laying around.
Okay. Well, I'm waiting for your slide.
Oh, you can go ahead and start talking.
Oh, okay. So as most of you don't know yet, Brent and I have a show called Up from the Rabbit Hole, and it's basically a gear show. It's so far it's been about once a month, every Fridays at 3 p.m. ET, and we've gone over things like studio setup, basic gear, portable setup, things like that. Well, the thing that we realized in the course of all of those setups is we have a lot of gear we don't use anymore, but it's really good gear. We have cameras, we have mics, we have lights, we have tripods, we have lenses, not so many. We have pretty much. I have 5 gimbals, and most of you probably think that's a department store that went out of business in New York, right? We have extra field recorders. I mean, we have a lot of gear, thousands and thousands of dollars worth of gear that's either outmoded, didn't work for what we want, has been replaced by something better, etc. So we decided, well, lots of people could use this gear, and we're talking about some serious stuff here. So we're going to give it away. And here's the trick. You have to watch the show. You have to watch to the end. And the first person who gets to us at the end of the show will win that particular piece of kit, as they call it, that show, or those pieces of kit. There may be 2 or 3 things we give away in a single show, but you're going to have to pretty much watch the entire show if you want to. And so if you want to, though, the deal is it's kind of an endurance contest. If you can put up with us for an hour, you have a really good shot at winning something that will save you potentially thousands of dollars, right? So that's it. And it's going to be, again, we're talking about a significant amount of stuff here, nothing cheap. And we'll be advertising it in a lot of places. So, and occasionally, we'll come up with some unique contests or raffles or ways to get the gear too.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, about the best I can tell you now.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
The great gear giveaway. How you like that? GGG. Yep.
And it's going to be a regular event.
But I tell you what, I don't like. I don't know if it's a StreamYard or if it's it has to be StreamYard. That slide did not have the great gear covering my mouth. So I don't know what the deal is with the processing on the StreamYard, but let's get that corrected.
I think Az is sending you a hint.
All right. So why don't you introduce our first guest, the first timer, and as usual, I turn things over to the venerable Paul Greenberg. For today.
All right. So this is really kind of different and interesting. This gentleman, I didn't even know him a month and a half ago. And yet Brent and I both met Mark Stiving at Pros, where we found that he's a preeminent expert in pricing. He's an industry analyst. He's a thought leader. And he's a really good guy, and he does some cool things too. So he gives me his card, and it's literally a card from a deck with some stuff with a quote and him on it. And then I was so impressed with it that he actually gave me the deck. Now, I actually went through the deck, and it was almost ironic, but I pulled the card that had the best quote to me. All right, and it was. I hate to say it, but it was, I don't know if you can read this, but it's the Joker, right? And the quote on the Joker says, every person makes every decision in their own self-interest. Again, doesn't mean selfish. In their own self-interest, that includes buyers.
Is that the Commonwealth of self-interest? Or?
Well, I didn't want to. It's his show right now, not mine, right? So, but it's very cool. He's a cool guy. He knows more than I barely can spell the word pricing properly. This guy knows everything there is to know about it. I went and did some research on him, and I want to bring him on because I have some fundamental, basic questions that I think all of you need to hear from a guy who really knows the field.
Did you
Mark
say his name?
Stiving, come
Okay.
on.
I was waiting for the name part. There it goes.
There he is. How you
Paul,
doing?
that was the best introduction ever.
Hey,
This-
Mark, that's why I always turn it over to him, because if it were left up to me, you would be introduced. We got a guy named Mark coming on. Come on, Mark.
No, when you and I were talking at Pros, you're just a really cool guy, and that was noticeable. But then I also the most wanted. No, I don't think so. I also did like research too, and I mean, you nailed this stuff, and it's complicated. It's complex, I guess, is a better term for it. So I think you're like the ideal person to introduce people to how to even think about pricing, why they should think about pricing. Also talk a bit about the Pros conference and so on. But before we even get there, what's your history, man? I know you probably didn't come into the world as a poker player, gambler, but I'm thinking you're somewhere there now.
I wish. So back when I was 12 years old, I remember going to the grocery store and seeing prices that ended in 9, right? 69, 99. And I always wondered, why do companies do that? Right? Do they think we're stupid? And we know 99 is $1.
Right.
About 20 years later, I found myself in a doctoral program at UC Berkeley, and I had a chance to play with scanner panel data. Now, this is the data that grocery stores collect when you use your loyalty card.
Okay.
I could statistically test whether this 9-cent thing works or not. And it turns out it does. And then by creating different models, I could figure out, why does it work? And I became absolutely addicted to understanding how people use prices to make decisions.
So you're saying you're understanding, you have the deep understanding of the behavior of people relative. Okay, well, I'm going to bite on something here. Why? I mean, I don't think, to your point, what do they think? We're stupid? But apparently people get into it. Somehow a penny makes a difference. I mean, why? It's
okay. It isn't that the penny makes a difference. It's that we are lazy subtractors. When we're choosing between two products, we want to say, hey, what's the price difference? And we subtract two prices. So if you subtract $299 from $400, to a lot of people, that looks like a $200 or $200 difference. Right. We just ignored the right-hand digits, and all we did was subtract the left-hand digits. And so I'll ask you this question. When's the last time when you bought gas, you looked at the 9/10 of a cent on the gas sign and let that make part of your decision process?
Good point.
Well, Mark.
No, never. That's amazing. So, all right. So now let's take it to sort of the bigger picture, because you're dealing, and we are in a different way, but you're dealing with kind of big dollar pricing, meaning $1.5 million. No, I'm sorry, $1,499,499.99 deals. Right. So how does, when you're talking to somebody, let's say you're trying to help figure out a pricing model that works for them as a company, and then I want to get to the buyer side of it too. This is the seller side. What are the factors you tell them to be thinking about when they're building this kind of model?
Yeah, I think that's a fabulous question. The thing to realize is the only thing that matters if you are a company trying to set a price, the only thing that matters is how your customers perceive the value of your products.
Okay.
Right. And so it's what we call, every pricing person uses what we call value-based pricing. Value-based pricing simply means charge what a customer is willing to pay. Now, it turns out that's impossible to do because we can't read somebody's mind. We have no idea how much they're really willing to pay.
Right.
So our goal is to get closer and closer to that one answer. And we do that by understanding how they go about valuing our products. And so then I probably have a dozen different frameworks that I use. And the complexity of pricing is being able to pull the right framework at the right time and saying, oh, let's go apply this now.
Okay.
there are certain things that I try to start with all the time and say, does this fit? Does this not fit? So, in today's world in software, boy, I want to do a subscription if I can. But there are some times where it doesn't work, but boy, we almost always want to try one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've been listening in on a number of these earnings calls lately, and everybody's talking about inflation and all that kind of stuff. And all these folks are making like hella earnings. They're all like beating their estimates. And one of the things they're pointing out is how they have more power over their pricing right now. Why the hell is that? I mean, it's not like inflation is already driving things up, but apparently they're able to capitalize on the inflationary environment right now over, folks who are strapped for cash. Why are companies able to leverage, these tools in a time like now, and they're actually able to drive their prices beyond using inflation as an excuse?
Yeah. So volatility in a marketplace is often a good opportunity for people to make more money. Now, all consumers out there are about to hate me, and I apologize for this.
Are you about to bring the as up?
I'm going to bring the as, and but when I always teach, costs don't matter to pricing, right? What matters to pricing is a customer's willingness to pay. Now, what ends up happening is as costs go up, as inflation happens, customers understand that we need to raise our prices. Our customers, by the way, think costs drive pricing. We just know that's not the case. And so if we're in an inflationary situation, it is one of the best excuses to say, I need to raise my price now. And so I teach companies, what's the formula look like for how you're going to raise your price? Some companies, I would say the best companies, are leading inflation. So they're way ahead of it and saying, hey, I'm raising my prices faster than my costs are going up. There are a lot of companies out there that are lagging inflation. And these are companies who they're struggling. They're afraid to raise their prices. They think their customers are going to get upset with them. And you'll find that their earnings are nowhere near where they should be because they've allowed their costs to get out of control.
So you have companies that are, let's say, not doing the best they can. On the other hand, you have consumers who are looking for the best price they can get. And to your point, they'll pay for what they think is the price they're willing to spend, regardless of the cost of the product. But so in the B2C environment, you're buying some sort of commodity and it costs you a certain amount, and you either like the price or you think it's too pricey, one or the other. It's fairly simple, but well, I mean, imagine it's more complicated than making it, but nonetheless, in the B2B environment, negotiation, because it's a company trying to figure out, okay, I really, really like what these companies are doing. This company is doing, but I've got my CFO is on my case to control the costs. At the same time, I really like what I'm doing. I'd be willing, if without the CFO, to pay $20 million for this, but with the CFO is trying to keep me to 17. How do you deal with that gap? How do you deal with that kind of conundrum that the B2B buyers are in, and the sellers for that matter, to try to overcome and resolve that? What do you advise people on dealing with those things?
Yeah, so without a doubt, B2B sales is way more complicated than B2C sales.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, B2B sales has a huge advantage over B2C. In B2C sales, if I were to ask you, how much do you value this shirt? You don't really know the answer to that question. It's kind of like, well, maybe it's $20, maybe it's $50, who knows? In B2B, if I can show you how much more profit you're going to make, you're willing to pay me a percentage of that profit. And so I've now got a number that says, here's how much you actually value this thing I'm about to sell you. And by the way, companies only buy things if they think it's going to make them more profit.
Right.
So that's the easy part of B2B sales. Now, the complicated part is in the negotiations. And it really depends on what the sale looks like. What you described, Paul, is a lot like I'm going to sell a piece of capital equipment, or I'm going to sell a very expensive piece of software to a company. And what usually happens in those situations is there's a committee of people that are making a decision to say, what do we want to go buy? And then they make the decision, hey, we're going to go buy this one. They take it to procurement. And now procurement beats the crap out of the salesperson to say, no, you got to pay me a lot less than that, or you got to charge a lot less than that, or else we're not going to buy it. And so it's really understanding all of the different nuances of what's going on, who has power, where's the value. My favorite, honest to goodness story, back when I had a real job, I helped a company choose a multi-million-dollar software package. Okay. And I went into procurement and I said, this is what we're going to go buy. And they invited in the vendor, and I'm sitting in the room when the vendor was there for the first time. And I heard procurement say the words, we're looking at 3 other competitors and yours is the most expensive. You have to lower your price a lot if you expect to win this deal. I know for a fact that was not a true statement, right? Because we were buying that vendor's product.
Wow.
And so that's what happens.
Well, it's pretty good. They're straight out lie to get to get an edge. Nice people.
Hey, I've learned a lot on this one, particularly that we can blame Mark for all the inflationary price pressure that apparently is going on and is crippling the consumer. But companies apparently are living pretty large at the moment.
So all right. So now we meet at, the 3 of us meet at Pros, and Pros, the company, I've had a very long association with them, just adore, really. Actually, we'll talk more about this later, and wanted to see if you want to stick around afterwards. We're doing an analyst panel on halfway through event season. What's your impressions, right? Kind of thing. But it's up to you. If you don't want to, certainly don't have to. But Liz Miller is going to be on, who you probably met at Pros also. Rebecca Wettemann and Don Fluckinger are going to all be on. So,
and they're all in the green room. President accounted for.
Hi, everybody. So if you'd like to stay and be part of that, you're welcome to. If you can't, I know time is time, but
I'm happy to stay, but I'll have to say that you guys know more about those software packages than I do, by far.
Oh, well, don't worry about it, because we're not really going to be talking about
No, Brent and I do this is our time to just be co-hosts and listen to them talk, right?
But wait a minute, before we extend an invitation, we do have to ask a certain question.
Wait. Okay, one more last thing though.
All right.
Just not Pros, the conference here, Pros, the company, that Pros, what they do. I mean, how do you feel? Do you feel that they're like, they deserve their status as, let's call it best in class, the number one market leader, et cetera, or they have things they need to do? I mean, it can be as polite and benign as you like, but if you care to say anything else, I love them. But I do blame them for paying more on airline prices.
Yeah, I think that Pros tackled the single hardest business to do pricing in exceptionally well. And that's the whole travel industry, airline industry. Yep. You've got perishable goods there, constantly changing prices. So I think they did a fantastic job with all of that. And then when you take that same technology and apply the concept. So let me step back and say, what's the number one concept they're applying? And I'll tell you, it's price segmentation.
Okay.
It's how do we charge different customers different prices based on the situation, the willingness to pay, and how much supply we have. We don't want empty seats. So really hard problem. And they did a fantastic job with that. So and as soon as you say price segmentation, and now I go talk to a B2B world where I've got a whole bunch of different potential buyers out there, it's the exact same story. Different buyers are willing to pay different amounts. Can I figure out what that looks like and how I can charge that? And so I'm a huge fan of Pros from what they've done in that respect.
And I'm assuming all the airlines that are Pros customers this weekend are probably feeling pretty good about their Pros investment too. You all know what's going on right now with the airlines.
Oh,
That's what I'm. All right.
Anyway, all right.
So before we, this has been a great conversation, and it's really been fun and interesting. But depending on the way you answer this next question, we may never speak to you again, and we definitely will not have you on the panel. By the way, where are you based? Before I ask that question,
I live in Reno, Nevada.
okay, I'm feeling a little bit better about this now.
Okay.
Do you have a favorite NFL team?
I rarely watch the NFL, but I'll choose one because I happen to know what the wrong answer is.
Okay.
I lived in the Bay Area and loved the Niners for quite a while.
All right,
Okay.
that's
Perfect answer.
I'm a Rams fan, but that doesn't. I'm not upset about that. There's only one. Matter of fact, you notice I'm rocking a brand new like Rams hat for the 4th of July.
Whoa! No, I didn't see
that
that.
deal?
That's pretty amazing.
I
Most
literally got that.
patriotic Rams hat in history.
Hey, be careful of how you say that P word.
Oh, that's right. Let's say the most promising. Nah, I can't come up with another word.
Just say
There's
it's nice.
nothing I can do.
All right.
Nothing I can do with this one.
So Mark, thanks. And if you want to stick around, please, because I don't know how many conferences you go to, but we know you went to at least one, and we love to kind of get your feedback amongst all the other folks that we're going to have on. So why don't we do this? I'm going to just for a minute drop you back into the green room so we can set everything up here. So hold on. All right. So we're about halfway through the year. Pretty much the spring conference season pretty much over, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot going on in July and August, right?
Not conference one? No, not really. I mean, probably I'm guessing some analyst summit type things here and there, maybe, but not really.
Yeah. So we thought it would be a great time since I think I've been to about 6 or 7. You've been to about what, 5 or 6?
5 or 6, yeah.
Yeah, and there are so many events are back. Conference events are definitely back in full force. And so since we made it halfway through the year, we thought it'd be interesting to bring what we like to do is assemble the crew from time to time and to just throw it open and have at it on a subject. So we thought now that we're past the half-year mark, or pretty much so, let's see what people think about the first half of the year with respect to events. So to set it up, because he couldn't join us, we wanted to get a take from the Brohammer because,
Yeah.
the Brohammer, he is who he is. So we asked, matter of fact, let me do this. There he is.
There's that picture again.
I love that.
That's literally creeped, but you've creeped out every soul on this planet every time they see it.
That's all right. I love that picture.
That way, that was not generated by ChatGPT or any generative AI. That was generated by Brent.
That's me. All right, so let's go. He sent us a little clip giving us his thoughts on the first half of the conference season. So this is the Brohammer, and this is the Brohammer Speaks exclusively on CRM Playaz.
And season. Getting events right is hard. Transformation matters. That's hard too. And that's a wrap, guys. Just kidding. Vendors, why are attendees at your shows? No, they're not there to talk over DJs in the hallways. Sorry about that, Brent Leary. They're there for peer-to-peer knowledge sharing. They want to bring know-how back to their teams. Your virtual event access matters. Your virtual event access mostly still stinks. Air travel stinks also. People maybe don't want to start your event at the crack of dawn. They arrive tired. And your over-moderated panels stink also. Have confidence in your customers. The quote of the spring from a customer, no offense to crypto fans, but this is real. This is not crypto. There are real use cases. This is a priority for us. Blammo. Generative AI definitely has worthwhile use cases across industries. However, enterprise-grade generative AI isn't ready yet, and I think vendors maybe forgot to mention that on the keynote stage. So I hope that everyone watching today is able to look past those hype balloons bursting all over the stage and see all the cool stuff customers are actually doing, which I'm not going to rattle off now, but I saw everything from live commerce on TikTok, 20,000 SKUs updated daily, recommendation engine, selling across borders, competing with Amazon. This stuff's happening. If your marketing team is using 40 different applications, generative AI can't save you from yourself. And generative AI writes crappy overconfident, buzzword-infested content. If ChatGPT writes as well as your marketing team, there's something wrong with your marketing team, and I'm out.
It's like a mic drop from the Brohammer. The
I was
Brohammer
about to
dropped
say
the
the
mic.
Brohammer dropped the hammer. Right.
You know
so,
what? The funny thing is, he said he wasn't going to go into the examples, and then he went right into the examples, which was okay with me. It's kind of
worked for me.
But you got to love the Brohammer. All right, so we heard from the Brohammer. Now we assemble the crew. We don't have a lot of time for big introductions because everybody knows.
Well, you know what? Let's just bring them all on.
All right, so we do a little cavalcade. We will bring back Mark. We will bring in Rebecca and Patrick.
Hi, Patrick. Hey, Rebecca.
We bring in Liz.
Hey, Liz.
And we bring in.
Y'all are great. Hi, Patrick.
And
there's Mr. Fluckinger.
Hey, team.
The whole crew is here. Thank you. And that includes Patrick, of course, because Patrick is a part of the crew here. All right.
Right.
So before we jump in, guess what, folks?
Yes.
Surprise. We have to do something.
Yeah, I know what
Is it give all of us nicknames that have the word hammer in it? Because I'm haunted by the whole Brohammer thing. I don't.
You want to have a nickname?
With the word hammer?
No. I really don't. I just was wondering if that was going to happen.
No. I mean, give us time.
That was for him. That fits him perfectly.
You can give me a minute or two. Or, I will come up with one before the segment is over.
Patrick's already given up. Patrick is just staring out the window.
Guess what you guys are going to be a part of for the first time ever. It's not just Stump the Godfather, but it is Stump the Godfather. Here it is.
And now it's time for Stump the Godfather with the venerable Paul Greenberg. Brought to you by Microsoft Dynamics 365 Copilot.
All right. So for the first time, we're actually going to have a group Stump the Godfather.
Oh,
how about that?
I don't have to answer.
No, you are definitely going to answer. You're going to answer. And by the way, thanks to Microsoft 365, Dynamics 365 Copilot for sponsoring Stump the Godfather. So this is cool because all of you get an opportunity to fail or float alongside the Godfather with this question. So this literally came into my inbox about 2 hours ago. This company, this outfit, digitaladoption.com, which I had never heard from before, but hey, I like the question. I like the stat, so we're going with it. They did a report. They looked at Google Trends data, and I don't know what Ahrefs is, but it sounds interesting, so we'll go with it. So they took all this data and they found out that Google searches for ChatGPT have overtaken McDonald's in the US for searches, monthly searches, jumping to blank a month. Your question is, how many monthly searches are people doing in Google for ChatGPT? That term, ChatGPT. And I'll give you a hint, although StreamYard is really screwing with me because
I see.
That shouldn't be like that, because I was trying to let you know that McDonald's has 4.3 million monthly searches for that, and ChatGPT overtook it. So there's a hint there. There's at least more than 4.3 million searches going on for ChatGPT. So everybody, you have to give me a guess to find out what that number is for ChatGPT.
I will tell you one thing. I am so sad for the country that there are 4.3 million searches for McDonald's. Right. So it's just like bodes really, really, really badly for this country.
Who wants to throw out the first guess?
7.5 million.
I'll do the last guess since I'll leave everybody else. Let everybody else do it.
All right. So Don is in for 7.5 million. And anybody with comments in the comments section, throw a guess in there. We'll read it out. Liz, you look like you had a number in mind.
I'm going with 5.9.
5.9. So Don is 7.5. Liz is 5.9. Rebecca, do you have to confer with Patrick to get a guess in, or? Yeah.
Patrick's napping, so I'll have to go out on this.
He's falling asleep.
11 million.
11.
Go big or go
So
home.
she's going
right.
big.
That's
So we
right.
got 11 for Rebecca. We've got 7.5 for Don. We've got 5. What was that, Liz? 5 point what?
9.
5.9.
We did 5.91357. Let's go crazy.
We got 5.5.
That's a Gartner. That's a Gartner stat.
14159.
That's a Gartner
All
stat.
Mark, what do you want to throw out there?
I was going to say over billion hamburgers served.
Ooh, good answer, Mark. That's all right.
I think I'm going with 5.2.
Oh, come on, Mark.
Kind of undercut
That's
the
a Price is
there.
Right move right there. That's a
Kneecapping Liz.
5.8, but you know,
Ooh.
All right, so let me recap. We got Don at 7.5. We've got Liz at 5.9. We've got Rebecca at 11. We've got Mark at 5.2. And I'm amazed that I actually remembered all those. So I'm feeling pretty good about myself right now. Now it all comes down to The Godfather.
Come on, PG.
6.3.
6.3. 6.3. All right, let me just throw LinkedIn. I think that's Esteban. That's 10 million for Esteban. Sven has 8 million.
Okay.
Another LinkedIn with 6.2. They're just piggybacking on you there. Josh is going all in with 12.5. Eric is at 4.4. Another one with 6 plus. And Michael Thomas, 10 million.
McRib.
No,
McRib.
McRib searches.
Right. I mean,
That's a
Why
good
wouldn't they be?
sandwich.
Got a point.
why wouldn't they be?
Well, all right. So are we ready for the actual answer here? I think
Let's go
so.
for it.
All right. So the actual answer is. Damn, that did not come in good, but it's
The suspense is killing me, Brent.
It's 7.1.
7.1.
Yeah.
ooh.
There it is. There's a better look at it. 7.1. And this is the funny thing. The way that they worded this, they made you think that
McDonald's
was second. It's not even close. McDonald's is
10th.
only 10th.
10th.
Costco.
Wow.
Costco is more than it. Maps, MLB.
I like that Maps in general is just kicking everybody's butt.
So right now,
Wow.
ChatGPT has just stormed everything. But you notice I left number 5 blank. You know why I left that blank? And this is for the venerable Paul Greenberg. Because guess what? Number 5.
Blueberry bagels, number 5.
No.
CRM Playaz.
Oh, that would be good. No, it is the New York
Oh,
Yankees.
Oh,
Number 5. Look at how many is that, and how many of those searches are you, Paul?
like 5
Well, you,
million.
you remember my
Yeah.
you remember my guess was 6.3. I just added 800,000 over my actual searches for the Yankees.
All right. So thank you once again. That is Stump the Godfather. That was fun. It was a
The
analyst.
Yankees are
edition.
5th. That's awesome. I don't even care about the rest. The Yankees were 5th. Holy cow.
All right. Now that we've had some fun, and thanks to Microsoft for making that possible, it's always cool being sponsored by AI, you know? All right. So, folks, halfway through the year, we're done for the most part with the spring conference season.
Thank God.
Thank God, for real. Whoever wants to jump in with some initial overarching impressions, tell us how many events you've gone to and kind of what your top takeaways, good, bad, and ugly, for the season so far that you've had specifically. So I'm going to start because I know Liz and Rebecca, you guys have probably gone to more than anybody.
No, I just have a quick question before we start this.
Sure.
Are we going all the way back to March, or are we just counting that as winter?
No, it counts.
Yeah, the
Okay.
first half of the
It's
year.
first
Calendar
half
year.
of the year.
Oh, first half of the year. Oh, for the love. Okay.
Now, you know what? Let me say this. The Zoho India trip, that's such a special case.
That's an
I don't-
anomaly.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
everything
Yeah,
outside
yeah.
of that. Okay.
I'm counting.
Oh, she's counting up how many events she's been to.
Yeah, she's probably at 30.
Use both hands and maybe a foot.
Oh my God. He's saying 23. I'm seeing that.
6.9 million.
I hit 27 and I'm not happy. I hadn't actually quantified that.
Wait a minute, you've been to
27.
27 events? You like physical events? Or virtual
27.
Oh my God.
That's insane, Liz.
That's
I need
horrible,
to-
Liz.
I need to not do that again, ever.
Yes.
Again, ever.
Do you even have a home?
Well, it's called the Admirals Club. I pay a nice healthy rent there. It's a
All right,
So-
so give us your overarching impressions of the full season as you saw it.
okay, so first half, I mean, I think we can all agree, like everyone wants to host events again because, they can. But the interesting thing I saw was there's a different energy in all of these rooms than there was, say, second half of last year. Right? Like second half of last year, there was still that like, oh my God. We're like, we're saying hi to people. I just shook someone's hand. Like there was still that kind of frenetic stuff in the air. I kind of felt like attendees were a lot more serious coming into the first half. And I saw this kind of everywhere. Like Adobe Summit was like, people were super serious as it wasn't the big party. Connections, like in Chicago, like it was like people were serious. It wasn't like, let's have the beach balls going wild. Like people were just kind of getting to work. It was a lot of customers wanting to, I think John's point was spot on. Customers wanted to hear best practices from other customers. They didn't necessarily, I think the grumble that I heard a lot from people was they didn't want to be wowed. They wanted to get like new ideas. So yeah, that was kind of, I clearly all of the events have run in together to be one weird blur of bad muffins and soggy fruit plates. But
Also, talk a little bit to what you saw as, which is kind of an obvious answer here, but the overarching theme of most of these events and whether or not that was a good thing or a bad thing.
Okay. Here's the keynote. Wait, we can all probably say it along together. Don, Rebecca, and I could probably give this keynote all at the same time. So step 1, walk out on the stage, say that we're really excited to be back together. Oh my God, it's so good to be back in person. Step 2, we've got AI.
Step 3, it will not replace you.
Yeah, it will not.
Yeah.
Step 3, it will not replace you. Step 4, but this is new, but we've been doing it forever. It's not new for us. The AI is
Everybody else, nobody else knows what they're doing.
Everyone else is wrong with it. We're the best at it. And then like the rest of the product announcements.
Number 5, it's vaporware. It'll be out at the end of 2024.
Such a cynical
It's in
crowd
beta
here.
next
Yeah.
year. Yeah.
Well, let's put it this way. One thing that Brent and I had noticed is that 1 or 2 conferences actually handled it better in terms of how they thought about it rather than make it big and shiny. Did you run across conferences like that? Which ones where they actually were handling it? Like in our case, we noticed Verint really handled it well. They just basically brought it in and under, and it became part of the fabric of what their conversation was about, rather than here's the new shiny version of ChatGPT we have, right? They actually did a really good job at that kind of integration. And first, look, let's face it, most of the conferences, they could not talk about it. They pretty much had to. But it was how they handled it made a big difference in terms of impact on the crowds themselves. So do you guys have any conferences you thought handled it well? Well, Appian, obviously Brian's talking to that.
I thought ServiceNow
Don, Rebecca,
handled it
Mark.
particularly well.
What was that?
Rebecca said
I thought ServiceNow handled it particularly well in terms of grounding it technically. Obviously, they have a lot more technical audience than some of the other folks, right? But in terms of explaining their approach, large models versus small models, how you pick a model, those sort of aspects, I thought they did a really good job of showing really their thoughtful approach to it.
And Mark, what did you think in terms of like the way pros handled it?
Yeah, so I could count my number of sessions there were two. So I went to Pros and I saw Model N. I thought Pros did a really nice job. I enjoyed it. Now I don't have all the other ones to compare it to. And what I loved about Model N is I don't think they said the words AI the entire time.
Really? Did they acknowledge it in any way in the word
Sure.
but it did?
Sure, but they're not there for price optimization as much as they are for price execution. It's a slightly different role.
So,
Yeah.
well, let's see, but those are the things. I mean, if presuming everybody is, let's say, the people attending are more serious than they have been, that's exactly what they want to hear is, how do you help me? And how do these other, and what can I learn? And I mean, rather than, wow, shiny and new. Because the bulk, I mean, I went to 5 or 6 conferences. That was it. And I'm trying to literally retire here. So it's not working totally well yet, but
Yeah.
I'm on the path. I would have been to more conferences by now if I hadn't.
Hey, let me turn to Don, because Don is interesting. Oh, for a number of reasons, like jazz music and all that kind of stuff. Great sneakers when you see him in the concert. But
Shoe game.
he was actually on the reporter side and writer side for years. I mean, years, like decades, right, Don? I mean, you were a long time, man. You know, and now
I covered
So
Acrobat
old, Don.
1.0. I covered Acrobat 1.0. Adobe Exchange and Distiller. That's how old I am.
But now recently, you have, as we like to say, turned to the dark side and gone on the analyst side of the house. And you were recently, because I saw you at Connections not too long ago. I think that, if not the first, one of your first kind of ones of the year. So give us your impression of what you saw at Connections and kind of good, bad, ugly, whatever.
Well, I just find it interesting that this time around, with the wave of generative AI tools, you know, when AI first started, I mean, AI's been around forever, but really we started seeing commercialized tools, you know, Salesforce Einstein or whatever, in the mid-teens, right? They were talking about efficiency, workflow. We're going to save you time. We're going to do this and that. And now the dialogue around generative AI is safety, trust, protecting it. They're using a completely different vocabulary. So I think they learned some lessons from the first time around. And I think they're going to market with trust forward, just like Salesforce did. I think the vendors that are going to have the most success in this market are the ones who lead with trust and security this time around.
Especially since there's a new class action lawsuit against OpenAI and how they build out all that data and how they train their model, right? So it's you know, it's going to get a lot bumpier before it gets better. But yeah, amen, Don.
Hey, any general thoughts? I know Paul and I, you know, when we were attending a couple of them, I don't really need to call them out specifically, but did any of you get the feeling that even though we're in 2023 and a lot had happened virtually with conferences between then 2019 and 2023, that it felt like when we went back to these physical events for the first time in 4 years, it almost felt like the vendors just dusted off the 2019 playbook for events and put it into play without making many significant changes at all to the format and to the way that
I do not
they
agree
did it.
with you, Brent Larry. I do not agree with you. I think you're being generous and kind to say that they dusted off the 2019 playbook. So no, I don't agree with you. I think that they went to the way back machine and was like, hey, this is what's this book that says 2010? It looks fun.
Wow.
It was like all the muscle memory came flooding back. And you know, what boggled my mind the entire time, like there really wasn't a conference that changed their personal thing. I will say the funny thing that has happened is you have to watch out for those boom cameras now when everyone wants to do a hybrid event, and they've got those dang cameras that, like, if you're sitting anywhere in the first 3 rows, you're like, here it comes.
Right.
I'm about to get the CEO. It's that weird dive bomb. I think Tim Crawford and I posted pictures of it at a conference we were at together, because it was literally like over our heads for a good 5 minutes of a conference. When you were saying what we liked about AI, I will say I'm going to give out like 2 positive shout outs to Pros and to Pega, the 2 P conferences, because when they talked about AI, they didn't talk about AI without bringing the nerdy, right? Like they brought the firepower, right? When you bust out your 2 doctors, you got Rob Walker and you got Dr. You brought it was like all thriller, no filler. Like let's bring the folks out who are going to talk about AI. They're going to talk about it in a real way. We're going to talk about the models. We're going to talk about where the data comes from. We're going to talk about all of that. I mean, I would dare anyone to kind of find people smarter than folks like Dr. Michael Wu, who's going to talk about AI and in a really tangible way. So I think when people, I would say, if you're going to lead your show off with we're AI, like bring the power, bring the firepower. Like don't be afraid that it gets too nerdy, because I mean people were just leaning in. I thought both of those 2 individual segments on AI I thought were fantastic from Pros and from Pega.
Did anyone else feel like we've sort of lost our muscle memory on having human conversations and things seemed much more scripted than they used to be?
Yes. I forgot how to do eye contact. It's like I've been staring at Zooms and StreamYards and Teams for so long. Being in a room with somebody. Am I looking too much? Am I looking not enough?
But they forgot how to welcome people. Spontaneous conversations as well as the customer conversations on stage.
Yeah.
I'm
so glad you guys. I'm glad you're mentioning that, because I was some of those. It felt so constricted and so stiff. And I know John mentioned it, the Brohammer mentioned it, and it feels like maybe there's also this lack of trust in the customers being able to tell their own stories, or at least give them the proper framework to do that, as opposed to, it felt very constrictive. Not all of the conferences, but some of them. I thought Salesforce did a really good job in, they actually infused or integrated video stories of their customers into Connections. And I thought that was a really great way that they were able to do it. It was concise, it was compelling, it looked good, it sounded great, and it didn't feel like they were trying to stick to a script on stage. Whereas there were some conferences where their users it really felt like these guys were afraid to go outside the lines for anything.
And every sentence started with, and that's the reason why I love working with, like, it felt like, they felt beholden to, like, it was awkward and icky.
Right. I mean, they actually literally, that was a regressive step even past where they were going in 2019. I mean, there was some, like Pega especially used to put up these brilliant look, I mean, what always strikes me funny is everyone wants to have customer stories, but you have to remember the customer needs to be able to actually talk to people. They have to know how to do it, right? It's not like you go up there and you're reading a script and you're memorizing your lines, and it sounds horrible when you do that. And there were some very nice people doing that, but they were doing that, and it was obvious. The other thing another aspect of this thing, that one of the things we ran across this at a couple of conferences, a few of them really, was like, Brent and I always do the watch parties, which multiple of you have participated in. And we do them ad hoc. I mean, we don't plan them. They're not part of an engagement we might have. We just set down our equipment and we tie into the stream so that we can do Mystery Science Theater 3000 on the keynote, right? And they're very effective. And we, you guys, Liz and Rebecca have been on them, and Mark and Don, if you're ever at the conference we're at, you're invited. We even had the chief metaverse officer of PwC on one of them. But here was the problem. We couldn't do some watch parties because they weren't live streaming weren't live streaming the keynote. And their reason was, well, we were aimed at butts and seats. There's not even a relationship in that statement, right?
Yeah.
And then not live streaming has nothing to do with getting more people there. It won't do it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like they're bifurcating the event again, and to me, I'll put it this way. Less politely, I'll call it a disaster. More politely, I'll call it a lost opportunity. Did you guys run across that? I think even pros didn't live stream either, did they?
They didn't live stream it.
No, pros didn't live stream.
Salesforce did. Connections was live streamed.
Yeah.
Adobe Summit was live streamed.
Yeah. Pega wasn't.
Was live streamed.
Pega wasn't.
No, Pega was.
Oh, it was. That's right.
Yeah,
right.
we did. We did do it. Yeah.
Verint wasn't.
Verint wasn't. I
Right.
think that people have. So I think to Rebecca's point, because I think it's so important. I think that yes, people have forgotten how to have those conversations, and people have forgotten like literally how to behave. But I also think that people have forgotten how to welcome an audience and bring people in to where everyone feels, whether they're at home or whether they're sitting in the very back row of a building or if they're sitting in the very front row, where Don and I like to sit, where, do you feel welcome? Do you feel like you've been welcomed into that? Are you, is there that, is there the MC that is having a conversation with the audience before the keynote starts? It's that like, we're going to play really loud music and remind you of all of our great things on a screen. And then we're just going to get started. Like it's this weird hybrid moment of we're going to start everything as if we're starting a webinar, but then we're going to expect everyone to be in person. Like we're not quite reimagining.
Even to the most basic things, like we're going to corral you into a particular area to sit.
Yeah. Like,
Oh,
we're
yeah.
not rethinking it.
No. But I mean, one final question before we wrap. So each of you, if you're recommending what the vendors who are still planning the second half have to do, each of you give us at least one thing that you think they should, and you're welcome to do one or two. Mark, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a great one. Ignore you guys. Here's the problem as I see it. You've got meeting planners who haven't done their job for 3 years, and you're expecting them to come back out and be in the top of their game. And right now they're getting their feet wet and trying to figure out, how does this stuff work anymore? So I have no qualms about anything I saw. I was thrilled to be in big meetings.
Well, we mentioned, not on this one, but we've mentioned even yesterday during the happy hour, do we give them a pass for this year?
Yeah.
Because this is the first year in 4 years they're coming back. Some people were like, yeah. And some people were like, no.
I mean, give them something of a pass, but at the same time, there's some basic things they're just not doing. And when they're basic, they're basic. I don't care how rusty they are, man. The reality is, how would I put it? Even a rusty knife can cut things. Right. So I just wouldn't eat what it cut. Right. So they need to do the basic stuff again, and they should nail from the beginning. Other things, to Mark your point, you're right. I mean, they're having to not just, let's say this, they shouldn't have to relearn something, but there is a lot to learn. Okay. And I'll leave it at that. So everyone else?
Make them dog friendly.
You know what, Rebecca, you should just, every time you get your daily picture of Patrick that your husband sends you, you should just tell them to put it up on the big screen at all times.
That would be pretty awesome.
Don, what about you?
Oh, they need to bring more excitement. I mean, as Liz pointed out, it's just sort of like this video and then here's our agenda. No, man, come out with the t-shirt cannons. Come out with miniature ponies. Have Ballmer screaming, developers. We need some energy, because it's like we're going to church or something. We're not going to get excited about something you're showing us. Just bring some excitement.
Rebecca, I think Genesis did a good job of that last week. Remember, they had that crew of singers and people playing the fiddle. I thought it was like a really great way to bring it up. And even in pros,
Espresso in a keynote is always a good thing.
pros, they had that crew that talked about
Ernest
Shackleton.
Shackleton.
I was like, that was different, but it was interesting. I mean, it was, you know,
Actually was.
Grad Khan gave us donuts from the keynote stage too. That wasn't too
And not only that, he gave us voodoo donuts, which are really really good donuts.
Not bad.
That was a good move. Liz, your last word?
I'm gonna say stop navel gazing. Like, I get that it might be your first time back to something. It might be your first time back to a stage. It might be the first time you are bringing your customers together, but I can't think of a single customer that only works with one vendor that's only gone to a conference, right? Your customer very likely went to an event last year or very likely went to an event in the first half of the year. They're not just coming to you. So don't navel gaze so much.
Which brings it back to make it dog friendly, but also make it human friendly.
Well,
that's what it's supposed to
like
be.
Like remember that as much as you're excited to be back, they need something to be excited about, right? And I think the big thing is that the thing they're getting excited about is not coming back to see you. It's about coming back to see each other. And so that means have great customer stories, have them be unfiltered. There is a reason why at any Salesforce event, people love seeing the golden hoodie, like I bequest the golden hoodie upon you, because everyone's excited about it. And it's a fun, happy moment.
And it usually comes with a really great story too. Like the person, that gets the hoodie, you get to hear the story of all the things that they overcome and what it means. And that stuff it's great.
And it overcomes. And you know what? A lot of times the nice thing that Salesforce does, and we can joke about a lot of things that Salesforce does with inflatable dolls and all the sort of things. But the nice thing is that in every single one of those stories, they don't take out the struggle, right? They don't take out when that trailblazer says I had to compete against all these other people. Or there was so much that I could have learned, but there were other people that helped me. Like, let that honesty from each other come through and make it more about them than you do about you. And as a marketer, and in all due respect, listen, we used to be at a point with event marketing where we used to talk to each other a heck of a lot more. And now we're just talking to our organizations. So event marketers used to learn from each other. They used to learn all the tips and tricks from each other. Hey, how did it go? It used to be a community. We need to get back to that.
All right. Did we get Rebecca? I can't remember.
Human friendly.
Okay. Human friendly.
Dog and human friendly.
Dogs.
I think they all need to bring the ass too. I think that's the missing component, but that's
bring the ass.
Bring the ass, whatever that means. All right, folks. Thanks so much for doing this, for joining us, for sharing your thoughts. We will see you. I guess things will start picking back up after the Labor Day weekend, and stay away from airports as much as you can until then. But thanks all. Have a great holiday weekend. And Paul and I will see you on the road. So later.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
It was awesome.
All right. Bye. All right. That was fun.
That was great. And Mark's lessons on pricing were pretty awesome.
They were, but we can blame him for everything now, because quite honestly, it's awesome for the companies, not awesome for the consumers, if that's the way they're thinking. Jesus. All right. But it was cool. I'm glad that you invited him on, because I learned a lot. That was fun.
Me
got
too.
a good sense of humor.
He has a great sense of humor. It's awesome.
All right. Any last thoughts on, the last?
No, I mean, the only other thing was, again, just the summary of a conference is very simple. A year from now, they'll probably, because it was so overwhelming, remember that the theme was AI and related to AI, but typically they'll remember how they felt a lot more than they remember what it was about. And so goes to all the points is we can't forget that kind of stuff. We got to bring it, you got to make it worth, the person's got to feel that they're at a conference worth being at, and do it and getting what they need to get out of it. And it's time to shake out the rust, but you have to move pretty quick on it, because you don't got the time in the business side of it.
I will say this. I kind of agree with Brian. we can check out the rust on some of the foods.
Yeah.
Some of it was good, but some of it was it wasn't that great.
No.
All right. You know what? I think we were all kind of, being honest with our criticism. I think I hope to see maybe some advancements after, Labor Day. Maybe things are, like you said, people or companies are just starting to, get back and wanted to at least pull off an event. Maybe they get a little bit better after Labor Day. We'll see.
Amen.
And on that note, we are the CRM Playaz. I am Brent Leary.
I'm Paul Greenberg.
And this is, of course, Minnie. And we will see you next Thursday. Have a happy 4th of July, and we'll talk to you after that.
Au revoir.